Dr. Navin Bikari, Director General of ICAC, Mr. Musafi, Director of the Procurement and Supply of the Ministry of Finance, my good friend Mr. Payag, Chairperson of the Procurement Board, Mr. Ulash Luki, General Manager, CWA, Mr. Jingat, Director, Corruption Prevention Education Division of ICAC, heads of ministries, departments, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, good morning to all of you. I am deeply honored to address you this morning on the occasion of the half-day workshop organized by ICAC in the context of the commemoration of the International Anti-Corruption Day, which is usually annually observed on the 9th of December. Let me seize this opportunity to thank ICAC for inviting me to intervene on behalf of the public service at this auspicious occasion. Indeed, my presence today as Secretary for Public Service bears testimony of the unflinching commitment of government to address the scourge of corruption which is afflicting our society. Rest assured that our stand at the ministry is clear and non-negotiable. A zero-tolerance policy against corruption is applied with all its rigor in the public service. Dear colleagues, this is my second visit to ICAC in a month, both for noble reasons, of course. Last month, I intervened at the opening ceremony of a training program on the conduct of corruption risk assessment for some 800 officers and members of the Anti-Corruption Committee set up in different ministries and departments. The training program was a joint initiative of the Ministry of Public Service Affairs and ICAC, in line with the government decision to require that each public body conducts 2 corruption risk assessments per year as part of one of the 3 KPIs set for compliance by ministries and departments. The performance of ministries and departments in regard to the 3 KPIs are closely monitored by my ministry, and a report is presented to Cabinet on a quarterly basis. Moreover, I am extremely happy to note that ICAC will be launching the guideline on the exercise of discretionary powers along with 2 other equally important guidelines. These will foster a culture of integrity, transparency, and accountability in the public sector. In fact, the Ministry of Public Service has closely collaborated with ICAC in the elaboration of the guideline on the exercise of discretionary powers, which will be a key instrument that will guide policymakers and decision makers of the public sector in using discretionary powers with fairness and discernment. For having had the privilege to serve as permanent secretary in various ministries, then as senior chief executive, and presently as Secretary for Public Service, I sincerely believe that it was high time to set rule-based procedures on the application of discretionary powers conferred pursuant to specific existing legislation. Indeed, in a vibrant democracy like ours, availing of discretionary powers without checks and balances is grossly inappropriate and repugnant of the principle of good governance and accountability. This is why my ministry, in collaboration with ICAC, have agreed to come up with clear templates and capacity building programs for supervising officers and other high-ranking officers following today's launching of the guidelines on discretionary powers. This initiative will contribute to ensure that absolute transparency and accountability is upheld for any decision taken by anyone in the position of authority is based on a selfless motivation. Dear colleagues, in my last speech, I have spoken about corruption as being pernicious force of our society. In fact, many predatory vultures, morphed as noble people of society, or are handsomely paid out of taxpayers' money to defend our interests, particularly those citizens at the lower rung of society. The truth is that never have they defended any single interest, nor any citizen of this country. Therefore, when viewed from the lens of the individual, corruption is an ugly sin, not only from a religious dimension, but also from a philosophical perspective. Many sinners dressed in sheep clothing are littering our beautiful country. We have and we need to hunt them and get rid of them. And this is not only the role of institutions like ICAC, but it requires a collective effort, a collective perseverance of each and every one of us to clean our country from these wrongdoers. Today's commemoration of the International Anti-Corruption Day is being held in a difficult context of COVID-19 pandemic, and where acts of corruption have the potential to exacerbate inequalities and tear us apart as a nation. For most of us, the pandemic has taught us a lesson on empathy and universal human values, particularly during the dark days of the lockdown period. In fact, we were reminded during that period that every human being is born equal, and our status, our wealth, and all that seemed to be important for us has meant nothing in the face of the dreadful effects of the pandemic. Everyone was indiscriminately affected. Everyone was scared. For some of us who still are not yet convinced, we surely come to realize that our source of happiness does not depend on how much we have amassed in our bank account. The limousine, the Porsche that we drive, or the position we hold in society. I'm not saying that these aspects are not important. Very far from it. Otherwise, I will contradict myself anyway. But you need to earn and deserve them from perseverance and honest deeds. Any worldly possession is just an illusion of happiness. In fact, less is more. Once we understand this basic fact of life, corruption should disappear by itself. Neither ICAC nor the police will be needed to keep it under close watch. As I used to say, corruption is man-made, and it can only be tackled by men and women only. But we need to confront the truth. The truth is that corruption is still pervasive and is still here in our society, in our country. The choice is ours. Either we fight it or we face an existential threat or the harrowing effects of a decayed society. Pour combien de temps on va tolérer ce silence des adieux? Dear colleagues, I would like to invite you to seize this opportunity of this workshop to be fully prepared on the risk of corruption in line with the 3 guidelines which will be launched today. Before I end, I would like to express once again my sincere thanks to ICAC for this laudable initiative and their unflinching support in the fight against corruption. We look forward to your active participation in making this workshop a success. Let me wish you a very good day. God bless you all.